Mr. President,
The Democratic Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Now, Mr. President, on January 20th, the Biden-Harris administration will begin its work with a mandate secured by the largest number of votes ever received by a presidential ticket in American history. Its task, of course, will be daunting. The darkest days of the COVID-19 pandemic are unfortunately ahead of us. More than 100,000 Americans are being diagnosed with COVID a day. More than 1,000 Americans are dying. Soon, thankfully, we'll have an administration that actually acknowledges this healthcare crisis, an administration that takes its job seriously, that will listen to the counsel of scientists and doctors, and work to improve the lives of all Americans, regardless of who they voted for. Already, the incoming administration is preparing to hit the ground running. Yesterday, the President-elect announced his COVID-19 task force, a group of the nation's top public health experts and scientists who will advise the incoming administration on policy. Today, Senate Democrats will receive a briefing from one of President-elect Biden's scientific advisors, former Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy. I expect it will be the first of many conversations about how the Senate and the incoming administration can work together to get COVID-19 under control and on the retreat. Because the truth is, the executive and legislative branches are going to have to work together in the coming months to crush this virus and put our economy back on the right track. Nearly 15 million Americans have now lost their jobs, and by extension, many of them have lost their health care coverage. Medicaid enrollment has spiked across much of the country, adding new stress to state programs already beleaguered by the demands of COVID-19. Democrats have a plan through the HEROES Act to strengthen and secure Medicaid for the duration of the crisis. Congress should pursue a strong, comprehensive COVID relief bill that actually meets the needs of the American people. Yesterday, however, the Republican leader suggested the Republican majority will continue to pursue its policy of targeted relief, in other words, inadequate relief. He seems to suggest that the development of a possible vaccine was actually a reason to pare back on aid to the American people. Let's be very clear. Getting this country vaccinated will be a massive undertaking. And while I share in the hope that yesterday's news brings, we cannot pretend this pandemic is nearly over. Regardless of this news, it's likely the coming winter months will be the worst yet. The nation is suffering from the uncontrolled spread of the virus now, with hospitalizations, fatalities on the rise all across the country. Hospitals, healthcare providers are again overwhelmed. Temporary morgues are once again, sadly, being pressed into service. We all look forward to the day when vaccination is widely available, but we do not have the luxury of waiting to grapple with the current effects of this crisis until then. We have to act now to prevent the immediate crisis that's coming this winter. So while the incoming administration prepares to take on a resurgent COVID-19, Congress must as well. Leader McConnell and Senate Republicans must come to the table in good faith and work with us on a bipartisan bill that meets the needs of all our country. The House, of course, is Democratic. The Senate needs a bipartisan bill to pass something. We have to work in a bipartisan way, and we owe it to the American people. On another matter, I don't think many of us expected President Trump to leave office of the presidency with grace, a quality he has not once demonstrated during his long career in business or his very short career in public life. But the extent to which the Republican Party is legitimizing the president's assault on our democracy is infuriating and deeply, deeply wrong. The president is not merely bringing forward well-founded legal challenges. He is not simply taking advantage of the ability to request a recount in states where one is possible. He is declaring himself to be the winner of an election that he lost. He is claiming to win states that he lost. His legal team is filing scores of frivolous, unsubstantiated lawsuits. He is undermining faith in our elections and poisoning our democracy during one of the most delicate moments in our constitutional system, something we treasure, the peaceful transfer of power. The President has fired the Secretary of Defense, threatening the continuity of our national security policy because he's having a temper tantrum. Not only does this put at risk a smooth transition in one of the most sensitive and critical areas of our government, it creates an opening for our adversaries to take advantage of instability and inexperience. The current Attorney General of the United States has made a show of authorizing federal probes into supposed election fraud, lending a veneer of false credence to the president's delusions. It violates the long-standing tradition of avoiding even the appearance of law enforcement interference in our elections. Almost immediately, Attorney General Barr's decision prompted the chief of the Justice Department's elections branch to resign in protest. The Government Services Administrator, GSA, has still not signed the paperwork necessary for the Biden transition team to begin its work. And here in the Senate, the Republican leader and several Republican members are trying to give their president air cover. Yesterday, in the same breath that Leader McConnell celebrated the re-election of certain Republican senators, he declined to congratulate the winner of the presidential election because the election results have not been officially certified. The political right seems eager to celebrate the results it approves of while delaying judgment and casting doubt on the results it doesn't. Indeed, the Republican leader could not even mention two words, Joe Biden, who, regardless of what Republican senators may think, will be the next president of the United States. Two Republican members of this chamber have called on their own Secretary of State, a fellow Republican, to resign, for no other apparent reason than the fact that President Trump did not win their state. They allege the Secretary of State did not deliver honest and transparent elections. That's really a stunning charge in the United States of America. That's the kind of thing you hear about in banana republics and dishonest elections. Surely United States senators would have some evidence that in the world's premier democracy, an entire state's election was not conducted honestly, as they say. Surely you must think that those senators have incredible, substantial, and weighty proof of such a scandalous and alarming allegation, but you would be wrong. Those two senators provided no evidence, not even a shred, to back up their claims. Three lonely Republican senators, three in total, have congratulated the next president and vice president of the United States on their victory and called on the nation to come together. The rest have been silent or outright sympathetic towards the president's completely unsubstantiated claims of election fraud. So look, here's where we are. Every major media outlet, including Fox News, has projected that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris will be the next vice president of the United States. Not because the media declared them to be, but because more than 76 million Americans voted them into office. There's been no evidence of widespread voter fraud or any indication the results might flip in not one but several states. The country is ready to move on from 4 years of tumultuous and incompetent administration. The institutions of our government will ensure it on January 20th, no matter what the current president claims. But they cannot ensure faith in our democracy in the hearts and minds of the American people. That's a project for both parties, to confer legitimacy on an election in which, yes, half the country will be disappointed, but after which the entire country must pull together. And every day that goes by without the Republican Party acknowledging and accepting the results of the election is another day Americans' faith in our democracy declines. Finally, on Veterans Day, tomorrow, we will all proudly observe Veterans Day, a chance to honor our veterans, heroes who come from every walk of life, every color and creed, joined by a common love of country and an uncommon love for their fellow Americans. This week, we say again, thank you, thank you, thank you to every veteran for their service. Like so many things this year, Veterans Day will be different. We cannot come together as we normally do. We hold in our thoughts the prayers of the veterans across the United States whose lives have been touched by this awful disease. And we give special thanks to many veterans who worked as teachers, healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, community leaders, the very heroes in a different sense who are keeping our communities going during these tough times. We in the Senate have a solemn responsibility to make sure they continue to get the help they need. Finally, it's always a little different when we observe a Veterans Day in the aftermath of an election. We must never forget our freedoms to speak freely, assemble peaceably, choose our leaders, forge our destiny, have been secured time and time again by the sacrifice of Americans who have worn the uniform. I yield the floor.
Will the senator withhold?